Okay, so this is a little bit of a different video diary to normal. So we're taking people's thoughts from across the group on a number of questions at the end of the trip, rather than doing it day by day. So the trip that we've done is the Annapurna circuit. So this is traditionally maybe a 16-day hiking trail, but we think we can get round it in about 9 days on mountain bikes. And broadly speaking, it's a circuit starting from near Pokhara. It builds up to a pass at 5,400 meters and then drops sharply down at the other side and then follows the valley back round again. So we've got, what was your high point of the trip?
So I'd say my high point is making the pass without getting hypothermia.
Highlight, I'm going to be predictable on this, is the descent from Thorong La. Absolutely brilliant. Wish I had the chance to do it again and get it a bit more dialed in and actually even up the pannier weight, because I still think that's why I struggled on the right-handers, and that's the only reason Steve got ahead of me.
Okay, so my highlight of the trip has to be making the top of the pass. As I'm sure others will mention, I wasn't in good shape at the start of the morning. It was a long slog up. I was feeling quite affected by the altitude, and honestly can say that I only made the top of the pass due to the efforts of the rest of the team, who were carrying my bike and all my kit for me. I just had the job of carrying my 2 feet and trying to stagger to the top. And 2 points, I mean, getting to the top is really that's the toughest part of the trip, but then I was also very much looking forward to losing the altitude, going back down the other side and being a little bit more safe and secure in terms of the altitude sickness that I was feeling.
The highlight for me would be getting to the top of the Thorong La Pass. So yeah, it's certainly the highest I've been, and certainly the highest I've been with a bike. So yeah, 2 birds with 1 stone there. So.
Well, first time in the Himalaya, great, spectacular, like the mountains. Like the butterflies on the first day, didn't expect to see those, they were gorgeous. Although the actual highlight of the trip, often with me, it's physical. And so I guess the highlight of the trip for me was the pushing the bikes up to high camp on about day 6. So in my now 52, the occasions on which I'm feeling on top physical shape and really feeling good about myself and my activity and what I'm doing, and the only thing that's holding me back is being a little bit out of breath, are few and far between. And the push up to high camp was one of those days. Hard work, but great stuff. So I've still got that competitive edge in me, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself on that time.
Very good.
So I think the highlight for me was, my personal highlight was when Colin used these mystery drugs to cure me of my upset belly on day 1. I was in a pretty rough state, and Colin came out with these mystery pills, and I felt great within 24 hours. So that was probably my personal highlight. I think as a group, obviously getting up over the Thorong La Pass and down to a sensible altitude was fantastic as a group as well.
What was the low point of the trip?
Low point is a tricky one because there weren't very many low points. Fair, I think downstairs leaning against a freshly painted wall would take it with not much competition.
So I think for me the low light was getting ill within 24 hours, being pretty sick and lying in bed thinking, crikey, there's actually a risk that I'm not going to make this, having everyone got to the start line. It felt pretty rough to be laid in bed thinking, blimey, I might have to miss out on this. So that was my low light, yeah.
Okay, so the low light of the trip for me was very clear. The morning before we were due to go up to the top of the pass, The normal signs of altitude sickness, of headache and a little bit of nausea were there, and mainly to be expected. I was quite concerned about the dizziness that I felt. I wasn't very steady on my feet. It was actually a little bit of a struggle to walk from where we were sleeping to the toilet and to the dining room. Really couldn't shove any food down my neck, and I thought there was a fairly non-zero chance of having to turn back and abandon the trip. We sat in the sunshine, warmed ourselves up for a little bit, and we saw every other group had left high camp, so we were very much behind the pace in that respect. And yeah, I felt in a pretty sorry state at that point. Now,
the low point equally would be the end of the same day. It would be limping into Johnson and probably being ill. So bad case of letting myself get too cold on the way down and catching a chill, I think. So it pains me to think that 4 other people ate my yak sizzler.
Low light has to be Colin looking at you on Friday morning thinking, are we going over or aren't we? Yes, stand out low light. I'm sorry to put that back on you.
So oddly enough, about 12 hours later, sitting at breakfast at high camp, looking at Colin with his head on the table, thinking, I wonder what's going to happen now. Obviously, it was a big day that day, and we'll come on to that. But I guess at that time the trip was a little bit in doubt, and not knowing quite what to say or quite what to do. But I guess my faith in Colin's fortitude was never quite broken. But that was the little element of doubt crept into the trip at that point, and it was nice when that was resolved.
the advice for somebody doing it next?
To coin Nike's strapline, probably just do it. It's a great trip, good route.
Don't bother with bottle cages on a bike. So on this trip, I had one. It just got covered in muck and gunk, and it makes it really awkward to get your arm through the frame to carry the bike. So don't bother with a bottle cage.
So advice for someone doing it next. Yeah, look at the guidebook recommendations. Don't just look at kilometers on the map, because the trail is a little bit rougher than you would expect. So Strava might say it was only 15 kilometers and a few hundred meters hike climbed, but actually it was quite a hard fight to get those kilometers under the belt for sure. So yeah, be prepared for a little bit of a slog, but come and do it. Maybe take a full suspension bike to smooth over some of those lumps and enjoy the downhill from the top of the pass a little bit more.
Basically, just to get stuck in and do it. I was fairly nervous once I'd find out what I'd signed up for, once I'd booked the tickets, and then started going, oh, bugger. Yeah, fantastic trip around the Himalayas, and you know, cool that you get to see and really immerse yourself, and those wow moments. Yeah. Now, the bit of advice that Steve gave me, which I think is probably worth passing on, is not going into the red. And you know, I have been known to push things fairly hard, but I can 100% say that I didn't push into the red. Honest, Steve. I think you did. But no, it's good advice.
Don't forget to enjoy the scenery. Don't forget to look up from your front wheel occasionally. Don't get sick. Easier said than done. But do everything you can not to get sick, because nothing's fun when you're sick. Life is miserable. If you can stay fit and healthy, it'll be great.
Very good. Advice. I think, and I guess when you sit there and look at the map, it's a pretty daunting task to cycle 180 kilometers around the Himalaya, up to nearly 5,500 meters. But actually, my advice would be just go for it and just keep chipping away bite-sized chunks, and we found that every day we got stronger, just kept moving forward, and yeah, it soon came, and I think anyone who's thinking of doing it could do it.
The most luxurious item that you took?
That is tricky. Spare pair of socks would perhaps wouldn't count as luxury, but given the 4.5 kilos of kit I brought, I think that's probably it.
My sleeping bag, definitely. I thought I was overpacking that because it seemed to be about 3 times as big as anyone else's, but in the end I was quite glad of that. So particularly where it was cold at the top of the high camp and Thorong La.
So the most luxurious item I took? Well, I took a pair of overshoes in case it was extremely cold at the top. It turned out that they were completely unnecessary. So just I expected it to be a little bit colder. I expected to be maybe even on my bike at the top of the pass rather than just walking. So I was a little bit concerned about getting cold feet, so I threw them in at the last minute and thought, well, that might be my competitive edge, not having numb toes, but it turns out that yeah, that was pretty superfluous.
The most luxurious item, I think everybody would know my answer to this, was my chamois cream, my Assos chamois cream, worth every single gram of cream that I bought. I won't go into the details as to why it was so valuable, but would not be without it, would bring it again, despite the mocking. And I'd never ever mixed it up with Pessel's hair gel. Let's be clear about that.
Well, it was probably my sleeping bag, which I bought just a couple of days before I left. Little bit unnecessary. We had duvets and blankets, although a little bit skanky in some hotels. But nice sleeping bag was very welcome, particularly at some of the higher places, and accounted for about half the volume of my luggage. So I think probably the sleeping bag was the luxury.
Well, luxury didn't feature particularly high on my lightweight packing list. I did take 2 pairs of cycling shorts, but actually threw one away after 3 days because it was just a little bit too much luxury for me. So yeah, the cycling shorts that got chucked away were probably my luxury.
The funniest moment of the trip for you?
Funniest moment was probably Steve's inappropriate comments on the group, on the WhatsApp group. Yes.
You explain to me a little bit more about what exactly you're talking about there, Andy.
So we had the group that included the 6 of us, but also wives, girlfriends, significant others back home. So yeah, so one might consider the content of one of the comments given the audience. Maybe Steve didn't give it too much thought before posting a particular comment, without being explicit.
Very good.
The standout comedy moment for me probably was rebuilding Hugh's rack with about 3 people all trying to fix it one lunchtime. What started off as a let's just stop for a bite to eat became a sort of 2-hour epic rebuild with all sorts of tools and techniques pressed into action.
So the funniest moment, there were quite a few. I think watching everybody work on my frame when my front forks had completely given out, trying to watch people get the forks off my frame using a chair as a very large mallet with bits of wood flying past my face. Probably an untechnical solution given the engineering brains in the room, but it turns out that if you have a problem, then yeah, find a hammer that's big enough to hit it.
The funniest moment, stand out, was coming down the Jeep track. Simple stream across the road to cross, and Petzl had refused at this one and carried his bike across, but he was thinking, I'll have none of that. So he lined himself up for it. He put the power on, his front wheel stopped dead, and his arse was quickly higher than his head, and teetered up there for a good couple of seconds before crashing back down to earth. Absolutely hilarious, still makes me laugh now, and I have to say I'm guilty of the Jimmy car laugh for an extended period of time, which was probably not helping the situation, but so funny, yes.
Well, the funniest moment is easy. This was Steve and Andy trying to remove Colin's forks in his hotel room using a chair. So here you have a top-end automotive engineer and a PhD engineer and director of innovation trying to remove a pair of mountain bike forks by twatting it with a chair leg, with wooden splinters flying off in all directions in the over the room, and the forks refusing to move. And I think we all found that fairly amusing.
Well, the funnest, this is something I'm particularly proud of actually, is when Colin and I hatched a plan to fake AMS to get Hugh and Jeff to carry his bike up over the Tharenlar Pass. And I think even to this day they don't suspect that we cooked up that one. So that's hilarious for myself and Colin, and maybe one day when they're looking at this video they'll realise they've been had. Sorry guys.
The piece of kit that you wished that you had taken.
That's quite an easy one. A bike for coming down the other side.
I wished I'd bought a proper long sleeve cycling jersey. So I'm going to roll this into the next question, which would be my kit envy would be Steve bringing a proper cycling jersey. I ummed and ahed about bringing that, and didn't in the end, thinking a couple of base layers would be good. But yeah, that's what I'd bring next time.
So the kit that I wished I had, probably a third pair of socks, or maybe even a self-cleaning pair of socks would have been useful. So I took 2 pairs, thinking that I could, easily rinse and wash. The trail was very dusty, so a little bit hard to hang socks off the back and get them to be dried. Otherwise, they would have just been full of grit. So by the end of it, the socks are pretty fragrant and in need of probably biological safe disposal.
The kit that I wished I had, Colin, was those photochromic lenses which you're styling now. Yes.
Another pair of socks. Here I am on about day 10 or 11 of the trip, with 2 pairs of socks, neither of which are fit for anything other than burning. And first thing I'm going to do this morning, other than getting a shave, is to go and buy another pair. So I think, even though weight was at a premium, bringing a third pair of socks probably would have been a good idea. Things don't dry as quickly as you expect at altitude.
I definitely wished I had a second pair of cycling shorts after I threw the first ones away.
The piece of kit that you were most envious of that somebody else had taken.
Yeah, it is, I think, a nice, racy, full suspension mountain bike for coming down. Yeah.
So, envy item from others. What item was I most envious of? Well, I think I had a fairly similar carrying solution to Steve, but he had a very nice bag slung underneath the top tube, which seemed like a very neat solution to increase the luggage and give a little bit more balance to the bike. So I think I'd probably pick that as my envious item.
Yeah, I don't know about this. I mean, Andy's got lots of lovely lightweight stuff, and a nice GPS watch that goes with it. I'm not going to say phones. I was the only one on the trip without a phone, and to me that was a good thing. Perhaps I looked at the scenery and the butterflies. So yeah, I'm not actually sure what, despite it being, I think, possibly my idea, this question, I haven't actually got a good answer for it. So if something comes to me, I will let you know, dear diary.
Your most rewarding day?
I don't know. Difficult. Well, I suppose maybe just finishing the 8 days in good shape, so we make it the final day, day 8, with kit and body intact.
Getting over the Thoronglar Pass, so that was a hard day for everybody, I think.
So my most rewarding day, well, clearly, I mean, the Annapurna circuit is really built around the one day of going up and over the pass. So that was also by far our biggest day. Started with much uncertainty and finished with much exhaustion. Had a little bit of a sting in the tail, so even once we'd lost the altitude, I'd perked up a little bit, but still felt quite exhausted. And once we got to the bottom of the valley and turned into the wind and the rocky trail, having seen just a brief patch of tarmac to give us some speed, yeah, it was a physically exhausting day, but had some of the best views. And yeah, the picture of me sat at the top of the pass, looking less than splendid, but making it down in one piece certainly helped.
My most rewarding day, Colin, was getting over the top of Thoronglar as a group. It didn't feel like on Friday morning when you were registering AMS scores, which we won't mention, that we were going to get over there, but we got a plan together, got something that worked, and got us all over the top. Nice bit of teamwork, and nice to all be there at the top together.
So maybe like many others, this was the summit day. It was a big day. It was a big day, sort of emotionally. Started off unsure what was going to happen. Were we going to go back down, sort of towards the start, and it would be a big anticlimax? Were we going to make it over the top? Was everybody going to end the day in a healthy state? So a lot of uncertainty at the beginning, gradually resolving itself as ever dogged Dr. Bolton forged his way up the mountain, and it became clear after an hour or two that yes, we were going to make it, and it was all going to be good. Great physical activity, loved pushing myself to the limit, and did a pretty hard slog pushing bikes up to the top. So it's always nice to reach my physical limits. And having done that and pushed myself pretty close to the edge, losing that height rather gingerly, taking care not to overdo it, and everybody getting safe down the other side. big day emotionally, big day mentally, big day physically. So yeah, pretty good climax to the holiday, that one.
I think in all seriousness, the most rewarding day was when we dropped down to something like 4,000 metres after coming up over the pass. Everyone was in reasonably good shape, and that was good because it'd been a bit of a hard grind the couple of days before that. So to get down over the pass to a safe altitude with everyone in good shape was really rewarding. Yeah, and just a good effort. Well done, everyone.
There's a cracking skyline, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it.
I've really enjoyed it. It was my first cycle touring experience, and I have to say we were very lucky, particularly with things like weather. So we couldn't have asked for a better week to do it. So yeah, thoroughly enjoyed the trip. So everything I brought with me did what it was supposed to, and yeah, I didn't think I'd overpacked or underpacked in the end. So yeah, enjoyed the trip immensely. So.
All right, some final thoughts to wrap up. So this has been my 40th birthday present from my lovely wife Eleanor, so thank you very much. It's been very much appreciated to have the time to not only come but also the time to train and get in shape so that I could make it to the end of the trip. So that was a very nice present for me.
Yeah. Look at what you're going to do before you book the ticket. And maybe check that your health is even good enough to go. Yes, an understanding wife, I would say, of the stress that went before the trip.
Well, I guess a nod to my bike. We did it together. Couldn't have done it without that. But more than that, a nod to my teammates, my holiday mates, 6 of us. Thinking about it, I mean, which of the 6 of us would have done it had it not been for the others? Steve, obviously, has done it before. Andy, possibly, although probably wouldn't have done it now he's got a family on his own. Certainly, me would never have done it on my own, but for the encouragement and doing it with friends. Mark certainly wouldn't have done it. I don't think Colin would have done it on his own. Again, Jeff probably wouldn't have done it on his own either. So, but as a team, all 6 of us got round and gave at least 4 of us the opportunity of doing something we just wouldn't have done had it not been for the others. So that was pretty special and a pretty good advertisement for our group of friends that does stuff together that we wouldn't do individually. So kudos to us.
Final thoughts. I'd say don't throw away your second pair of cycling shorts until you're absolutely sure you don't need them.
What's up with my heart when it skips a beat? Can't feel no pavement right under my feet. Up in my lonely room when I'm dreaming of you. Oh, what can I do? I still need you, but I don't want you now. skies. It's gonna hurt, but I'll have to say goodbye.